Hey guys, it's Nathan here from Morris Method Coaching. Now within this quick short tutorial video, I'm going to give you some tips and focuses on how you can improve your core for better performance while you're out there cycling. Okay guys, welcome back to this channel. Now I'd like to invite you to not only hit like on this video if you enjoy cycling or need a little bit of advice on cycling and how you can improve your core, or hit subscribe if you're interested in endurance training or anything health and fitness related. Now, first of all, we just have to start with what is the core. Now, what I want you to imagine initially is just to go, okay, the core is chop off the head and then down to the hips, and this is your core. Now, I'm not just talking about the front part of your body, we're also talking about the posterior part as well. Like, we are focusing on the core, which is not necessarily just your stomach. So now that we know what is the actual core itself, we're going to dive into why it's really important or a great idea to make sure that you're applying some of these focuses around your training program. You're obviously going to get an increase in performance if you have a good base strength for your core while you're out there cycling. Obviously, as the fatigue starts to settle in, your body starts to react in ways to try and make things more comfortable. Now, for having a stronger core for your cycling, now maintaining your form while cycling out there for a very long period of time, it should be a critical component of you thinking about how well you're going out there, is because your muscles start to work slightly different. When you start to change your position, let's say that your back starts to arch a little bit more because you're getting fatigued, or the huffy puffiness of the nature of the sport is getting the better of you, it will cause you to collapse in your core, and you can tend to find to overload and underload in specific areas. Having a good base of strength for your core is going to allow you to maintain good form so that the right muscles can actually continue to do their job to allow you to keep moving along the way. The last quick reason as to why you would probably want to improve your core strength for cycling is that it's reduced chances of injury. Kind of going back to the last point where you maintain better form, if you are constantly struggling and finding that you are collapsing in your core and you're finding your shoulders are getting hunched and kind of holding in the handlebars and your back's taking all the load, well, what you're going to find is putting yourself in a position where you're just going to get an overuse injury. Making sure that you stay uninjured is usually one of the most important things to any program. Okay, so we've quickly covered over what section of the body that we're looking at. Now you know why it's really important. I think you could have guessed those ones. Now, number 3 is how to implement this in your program before we actually get to the exercises themselves. Depending on where you are within the timeline, but let's just say that you don't have a specific timeline that you're working towards and you would just like to add in a bit of core work to try and focus on building your strength in your core for those longer rides. A great way to do it is, because predominantly most likely you're a working person who enjoys cycling on the weekend, a great way to implement it into your training program is either a pre or post core load. Now what I mean by that is, let's say that you're doing a 45-minute training session on the turbo. Now throwing in 10 to 15 minutes of pre-load work before you actually start. Let's say that you start with a variety of exercises just to put a little bit of an extra stimulus over the core. Then you go into your turbo session, you're going to find it's going to mimic what a longer session almost feels like, so that you can see how your body's adapting and see what it's like at the 2-hour mark, or you're mimicking what it's like at the 2-hour mark or the 3-hour mark, but really you're all doing it at home within a 60-minute measure. So a pre or post load is a fantastic way for you to slowly add these micro little exercises into your weekly routine so that you can see those adaptations and see the repercussions of what those little bit of exercises are going to do to your body. How else would you implement it to your training program is obviously working towards a specific timeline. If you're looking at building strength for endurance, I would highly recommend doing these at the beginning of your timeline where you're building your aerobic conditioning and allowing yourself to just take your time to building the base of both your aerobic and your strength for these endurance endeavors that you have. So we know exactly what we're targeting, why we're targeting it, and how to implement it. I'm going to give you 3 exercises that I would highly recommend you do to jump in and just start improving your core strength for those rides that you have out in front of you. Okay, so obviously and foremost is going to be your plank. When we talk about the plank, or some of you would have heard a bridge before, it is all about activating the transverse abdominis. I want you to imagine that you've kind of got like 2 sets of abdominals, and I want you to imagine one's like glad wrap that goes around your body like this. And then I want you to imagine another one is like a spring. If you think about stabilizing yourself on that bike, you would obviously want to work the glad wrap where it actually allows you to tighten in and stay stable. And this is what we call the transverse abdominis. And this is what you're going to be working with in the plank variations. To start out, all I would recommend you do is start out where you are. There are going to be different levels. So those levels could be, you could start out on your knees. Then you could move to your toes. Then you could even bring yourself from the elbow position up into a hand position. And if you're looking for a little bit more of an advanced option and a little bit more specific towards cycling, you could grab a couple of kettlebells where you are balancing on top of those, mimicking handlebar kettlebells that you are actually holding onto. Just start out with very simple. A lot of the time we tend to try and find all these different exercises that are going to do you amazing results, and how can I look for the most crazy core exercise to improve your core? But really, the foundations are going to be really, really important. So first I would focus on the stability side of things and build a good plank regime into your routine. So again, could be that pre or post load of the workout that you are actually doing. Number 2 is going to be reminding you that the core is not just the front part of the body. Now the plank will work your entire core, just depends on whether your hips are low or high or neutral, will depend on whether your stomach works more or your lower back works more. But I want to focus on the second exercise called a Superman hold, where you're intently working the lower back and the upper back. You'll also get some glute and hamstring activation in there as well, but let's focus on just the core itself, where you're going to engage your posterior chain, the back of you, just like what you would do while you're focusing on a plank, which is predominantly in front of you. So you've got both sides of the coin there for the first couple of exercises. The plank predominantly focusing on the front part of the core, and we've got the Superman predominantly focusing on the back part of the body, which is the posterior chain. Third and final exercise is going to be on your back, exercise called a single leg reverse sit-up. So what that's going to be is where you lie down on your back and you are nice and comfortable, and you place all of the load up into the thoracic, up into the upper back of your back, okay? And you're going to place your hands underneath your bum. And what that's going to do is just give you a little bit of security, but it's also going to allow you to utilize the leverage that we want to. You're going to bring your knees into a 90-degree position to start off with. And then all you're going to do is slowly straighten one leg out towards the ground, just hovering off the ground. And then you're going to bring that same leg back in again. And then you'll alternate to the other side. Now, when you're bringing the knee into the chest, what you want to focus on is actually trying to curl the bottom of your hips into your ribs. So I want you to imagine right now, okay, you've got someone laying down here, their ribs and head are up here, and their feet and hips are down here. Now, in the single leg reverse sit-up, you want to focus on not bringing this part this way. You want to focus on bringing the knee curls inwards, and you want to squeeze your hips into your ribs. So your ribs and head are up here, and you need to focus on allowing your mind to focus on what you're actually doing, which is to engage and lift your hips just slightly, activate your rectus abdominis, where your hips will actually cave inwards towards your ribs. And that's what you need to focus on while you're doing this last exercise. So obviously it's going to be very cycling specific, considering one, you are starting to split up the legs. Obviously with cycling, you are going right, left, vice versa. Having an exercise that's going to mimic that motion is going to be a great way for you to be very specific with your training. Single leg reverse sit-up is allowing you to work that kind of spring muscle within your abdominis. Again, we've kind of got, like I said, we've got the glad wrap around here, which is your transverse, which is what we're catering in the plank, and your Superman, which I would bet is the most important thing for your stability, better form, for your cycling endurance events that you are doing. But then let's get a little bit more specific on the movement action, which is where this single leg reverse sit-up comes in. So you are going to feel slightly different when you do these exercises. My recommendation to you is when you first start, just have a bit of a play around. A lot of the time, people start these new exercises and they just do too much too early, and you end up getting sore for 2 or 3 days, and that's not really what you're looking for. All you're looking at doing is adding just a little bit of a micro stress consistently over time, and then you can work towards your specific timeline depending if you have a race or not. Alright guys, hoping you enjoyed this video. Now, this is a quick rundown on how you can implement some core exercises into your routine to better improve your cycling out there on the weekend. Now, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please make sure you let me know. If you want any more advice, whether that's cycling, running, swimming, or all three, the triathlon trifecta, just let me know down in the comments below and I'll soon get back to you. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Catch you next time.